Today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you a cheerful summer birthday card that reminds me of a fun picnic at the park. This project is quick and easy to do and will brighten up anyone's day. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this project. First, you're going to need some ink, and I'm using some of the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. You're also going to need a couple of markers, and you can use any kind of markers you want. I'm going to use the Bic Market marker with the ultra fine point tip in the rambunctious red. I'm also going to use a Copic marker, and this one is G82. It's called Spring Dim Green. You'll need a little bit of ribbon, and I just grabbed a little piece of our 3/8 of an inch black gingham ribbon. You'll need some 1/4 inch pop dots. And then you're going to need some stamps, and I'm using a couple of the stamps from the new Days of Summer Stamp TV kit. And the ones I have here are this little sprig of roses, one of the birthday greetings, and then this little border stamp that looks like little lace butterfly wings. You're also going to need some cardstock and pattern paper. And I've picked a couple of the pattern papers from the Summer Brights collection. This is also the collection that comes in the new Stamp TV kit, Days of Summer. I'm using the red gingham or red checked background and also the green checked background. And these just remind me of a pretty picnic tablecloth, so I thought that would be fun for a summer card. And then for some cardstock, I have some of the Gina Designs white, some of the black onyx, and some red hot. So to begin, I'm going to start with the focal image. I'm going to stamp that using some of the Memento black ink. Now I have this piece of cardstock cut a little bit bigger than that image, as you can see, because I'm actually going to divide the image using this border stamp and then add the greeting down at the bottom. So not only are you stamping your focal image now, but you're going to have your greeting all on that same panel. And I like to do this once in a while. It makes it very easy to make a fast card, and it keeps the focal image and the greeting all together. So I've inked up that stamp, and I'm going to stamp it up toward the top of this piece of cardstock. Right about there. Now, if you take a look at this border stamp, you can see how closely cut it is. It's very easy to line up. And because I'm using a block that has a grid, I just lined it right up along one of those grid lines. And because you can see on the back the shape, you can actually place the butterfly or the little lace scallops down at the bottom so that they're even on both sides. I'm going to ink this up using some of this Memento black ink. And I'm going to have to get my head in here, so I'm sorry if that blocks the view. But I want to line that up, and I want to raise it up just a little bit past where my image is, and then stamp. And this way, I've actually finished off that edge. And since I'm using black on both the focal image and the border, the two areas blend together, and you can't even see where those lines might be extending down underneath that little flower image, or down near that border image. So now, I'm also going to stamp my greeting under there. I don't want to forget that. And I also did something similar. I used a block with some grid lines, and I lined up the greeting right along those grid lines. Got that inked up, and I'm going to stamp that right down here at the bottom. So there we go, wishing you the happiest of birthdays. Very easy to line up and very easy to complete a full image in just a couple little steps. So now I'm going to color these flowers, these roses. I'm going to start by coloring the actual rose flowers using some of the rambunctious red. And I really like this fine little tip on these Bic markers for coloring smaller images. It really works nicely. And if you're not planning on doing a whole lot of shading, you can mix Bic markers with Copic markers or any markers you want together. And I've even done some shading using different alcohol markers from different companies, and they all work very well together. I know that the Bic markers work really nicely with the Copic blender pen, so if you've been using Bic markers, a Copic blender pen is a fun tool to pick up. You can do lots of shading techniques and texturing techniques with that marker, which if you haven't seen some of those videos on Stamp TV, check them out. Okay, so just a little bit more here to go for the roses. And this rambunctious red really matches our red hot perfectly. So if you want a less expensive alternative, this is a great one. So there now, they're nice and vibrant. Now I'm going to use that G82, the Spring Dim Green, and I'm going to color these leaves in using the brush side of the marker. You'll notice on the Copic markers there is a very fine little tip on that brush end. So when you're coloring a more detailed image, you can do pretty well just by holding the marker more upright and just using the tip. Takes a little bit of practice, but it's nothing that you won't be able to accomplish with a couple practice tries. So there, now I have some green and red together. Now I'm going to color the little lace scallops down here, or they look like little butterfly wings to me. So I'm going to color those in this G82 to pull in some color into this border. And that's one really nice thing about a stamped border versus a die cut border, is that you can actually color it in whatever color the rest of your project is and make it all coordinate really nicely. Okay, so there I have some of that green, and I'm going to go back with that rambunctious red Bic marker and color in the little centers, little accent dots. And that really pulls everything all together. That's so pretty. So that's my main focal image. This panel is going to be adhered to this black piece, so we can do that now. And as you can see, I'm using our 80-pound layering weight because it did bleed through a little bit. And you know our 120-pound weight cardstock alcohol markers do not bleed through. So if you wanted to make this particular card on a single layer card without all this layering, then you could use our 120-pound cardstock and none of that would bleed through. Now I have a wider border here for the red panel, and I'm going to adhere that together. Again, using a little bit of adhesive. Make sure that's nice and straight. Okay. So now I've cut 4 pieces of this checked patterned paper, the red and the green. And what I like to do, you can lay this directly out onto your next layer if you wanted to. If you wanted to try to be very precise and make sure that you weren't going over too far to one edge or another edge, you could do that. But what I like to do is I like to cut a panel in a thinner cardstock. This is our 80-pound. And I'm just going to upholster this. And once I get these pieces all lined up, then I know it's going to be the perfect size piece of cardstock to just lay on top, and it gives it a little bit more strength. This is also a really good idea if you are planning to sew on a card like this. I actually wanted to sew on this card, but I couldn't get my little sewing machine to work today, so I'm going to have to look into maybe picking up a new one, and I'll let you know what I get if I decide to do that. However, I've had that one for many, many years, and I've worked it out pretty hard, so maybe it's just had enough. Alright, so there is my piece of red, and now I'm going to put a piece of green on the other side right next to it. And you see, it makes it very easy to line things up and make sure that they're straight when you upholster a piece of cardstock pre-cut to the size you want it to be for the layer. So put that one on. There we go. And now I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom, but I'm going to swap positions. So my green piece is going to be over here. I'll lay that down here. And then my final red piece will slip right in there like a puzzle piece. There we go. And now this whole panel is going to lay on top of my panel, my black onyx panel that's cut 1/8 of an inch wider. So we'll lay that together. Get that all in position. And then of course, adding ribbon with all this cute check pattern going, I couldn't pass up adding some gingham ribbon on top of all of that because it just goes so nicely together. And again, these pattern papers and this black gingham ribbon are all found inside the Days of Summer Stamp TV kit. So you have all of these pieces already if you have the kit. You can get started on this card right away. There we go. So that is a nice little backdrop. And if you wanted to, you could sew in between the lines, which looks really cute. I would suggest using a black thread to make it stand out and coordinate. And I'm going to lay that whole panel onto a red hot card base. And I always like to put a little bit of tape over that ribbon so it doesn't escape once the card is assembled. And then we're going to add our focal image. So there is my backdrop, ready for the focal image. Now I'm going to do that using the 1/4 inch pop dots. I'm going to add one to each of the 4 corners. And I like to do that because even though it doesn't add enough bulk to cause a mailing problem, it won't increase your postage or create too much bulk to get it in the envelope. It does add a little bit of dimension to your focal image, which I really like. Kind of raises it up just a hair. And I'm going to apply that evenly. You can almost count those checks going across to make sure your focal image is even there. So there is my finished Bright and Cheerful summer birthday card. Try substituting soft muted pattern papers for a sympathy card, or warm wood grain and denim pattern papers for your next masculine card project. Swap out different images and greetings, and this layout can be used for many different occasions.